Let's be honest. No matter how much we try, we don't treat everyone the same. Not our team members, not our peers, not even our bosses. It's not intentional, it's human. We all carry unconscious biases. We all interpret the world through our own lens, our backgrounds, cultures, experiences, fears, and even values. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Even when you think you're treating everyone equally, people still experience you differently. If you're not careful, that gap between how you think you're showing up and how others experience you becomes blind spots that erodes trust, slows down decision making, and kills productivity. And as an executive, blind spots are dangerous, but not just for you, for your entire team and your organization. I'm Alex Tremble, IO psychologist, executive coach, and best-selling author of Unlocking the Executive Advantage, Relationships That Work, and Leadership Sucks. Sometimes. I've had the privilege of working with Fortune 500 companies, federal agencies like the FBI and the US Department of the Interior, and top executive leaders across industries. And one truth I've seen repeatedly is this: your success depends, actually, I'll say it like this: your success doesn't depend on how you see yourself. It depends on how others experience you. That's why I created GPS Leadership Solutions and why I host the Executive Bill podcast to help leaders like you uncover blind spots, accelerate alignment, and lead with greater trust, proactivity, and productivity. The truth is this: what matters most isn't your intent. It, it's how your leadership is being perceived by people whose trust, motivation, and performance depend on you, and you depend on them. That's why 360-degree feedback is so powerful. It's not about labeling you as a good or bad leader. It's about giving you something much more valuable, much more important: perspective. Here's the framework I walk executive leaders through when they receive their executive 360 snapshot results. First, filter the noise. Not everyone's opinion carries equal weight. I know, cancel me. I get it. This doesn't always feel good to say or is that always popular to say, but the reality is that yes, we are important, but we're all have different levels of importance. You don't need to chase approval from every single person you run into. Some perceptions matter more than others. This is a law. This is reality. I love to tell people that my wife and I have been together for now 17 years. 17 years. Um, and I promise you, we wouldn't have made it this long if I valued the the perspective of the Starbucks barista more than I did hers. Right? It doesn't mean I thought less of one person. It just means that my wife trumps in this situation, right? So that's the first. It's just really filtering out the noise. The second is focus on leverage points. Identify which perceptions directly impact your ability to build trust, proactivity, and productivity. That's what we call the TP3 outcomes. Finally, align intent with impact. If people who matter the most are perceiving you differently than you intend, that's a signal. You now have a choice: double down on what's not working, mhm, or shift your behaviors to close that gap. It's your choice, but you can't make that choice if you don't have information. This is why the Executive 360 Snapshot is so powerful. Look, leaders leadership blind spots aren't dangerous because they exist. They're dangerous because leaders ignore them. Here's a quick example. I recently worked with a senior leader who was convinced her team saw her as supportive and approachable. She believed that she had created this amazing open door culture. She was just like, she was ready to see these results from the snapshot. The reality, her direct reports described her as distant and even intimidating. When she read the 360 snapshot results, she was shocked. She wanted to argue with them. After all, she had intended to be approachable. But here's the key: she didn't defend her intent, she leaned in. She began holding short weekly check-ins, explicitly asking her team how she could support them better. She also made small but powerful behavior changes, like turning off her phone when talking to her team so they felt like she was being fully present. Within 90 days, her trust scores jumped, productivity increased, and proactivity followed as well. Look, same leader, same intent, but her willingness to align intent with perception changed everything. Another example, I worked with an executive at a Fortune 500 company who had stellar results on paper. Revenue goals met, deadlines hit, teams delivered. They were flying on cloud nine. But when we pulled his 360 snapshots results, something surprising showed up to him. His peers and supervisors described him as hard to collaborate with. Words like territorial and defensive kept showing up. His perspective, he was protecting his team and making sure they weren't overloaded. From their perspective, he was shutting down collaboration, slowing down cross-functional projects. This wasn't about right or wrong. It was about perception. When he saw this, he made one key adjustment. Instead of saying no when asked for support, he started saying, let's talk about priorities. Here's what my team is currently focused on. If your new request is urgent, what should we deprioritize? That one shift reframed him from uncooperative to strategic partner. His reputation improved, collaboration accelerated, and ironically, his team workload actually became more manageable. Again, same leader, same intent, but aligning perception with reality made the difference. Now, I want you to pause for a second and reflect. Who are the 3 to 5 people whose perceptions of you matter the most right now? Your direct reports, your peers, your boss, maybe even a key stakeholder, customer, or board member. How do you think they perceive you? Write down 3 words. Now ask yourself, what would you do if those words weren't what they would actually say about you? Because here's the thing. Leaders rarely fail because they lack the technical skills. They fail because they ignore how others experience them. Take 30 seconds after this episode to just jot down those names. This small exercise could save you months, if not years, of frustration. Now, I want to leave you with a tool. I love always providing you with a tool when we do these one-on-ones. Here are 3 practical moves you can implement this week to start closing perception gaps. First, ask for 3 words. Pick one, just one, trusted peer or team member and ask, if you had to describe me as a leader in 3 words, what would they be? Don't try to explain away their answer, just listen. Next, run a micro feedback loop. At the end of your next meeting, ask your team, what's one thing I did today that helped us move forward? Be ready to listen. And what's one thing I could have done differently? And be ready to listen. Third, check alignment with your boss. And I feel like this is something that almost everyone could benefit from, but very few people do. I talk about this with leaders all the time. They really wish their subordinates would do just this. Look, book a 15-minute check-in and ask, when you describe me to your peers, what do you say? And is there anything you'd like me to do differently to better support you? Simple questions. Even easy to ask. But will you do it? I'd love to hear. Let me know. It's before we even finish in the chat box, in the comment section. Let me know. Are you willing to actually try any of these? Look, none of these require a formal assistance. It doesn't require a formal assessment, uh, but all of them create visibility into how you're being experienced. As I wrote in my book, Unlocking the Executive Advantage, leaders are not defined by what they say they value, but what others consistently experience from them. That's the difference between good intentions and effective leadership. You can have good intentions every day of the week, but that doesn't translate to effective leadership. Now, here's your start, stop, continue. You know I love doing these. So here's your reflection for today. What should you start doing to better align how you intend to show up with how people actually experience you? Next, what should you stop doing that creates unintended confusion, doubt, or distrust? And finally, what should you continue doing that builds confidence in your leadership? Remember, perception is reality. And when you have the data, you have the power to lead forward with clarity and confidence. The next thing you should do right now, honestly, take the executive 360 snapshot. We are so confident it works because it has consistently worked. And we're not just putting my words behind this, we put our money behind it. If you take one of our snapshots and you're not pleased with the results, you get your money back. That's how confident we are that these 360s literally have a very quick impact on how you lead. We literally call them our 14-day turnarounds, 14-day turnaround leadership improvement, because within 14 days, everything happens. You have your goals, you have your next to do steps, you have your information, and all you do is win, win, win after that. So visit gpsleadership.org. Get your snapshot today. As always, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya.